Okay, today is carburetor rebuild time on the Stang. So we're going to take off this one barrel carb and try to rebuild it. This will be my first attempt at ever rebuilding a carburetor, but luckily this is the simplest one. They don't get much simpler than this, being a single barrel on here. So what are we going to have to do to make this happen? Well, let's get into it and take a look. Okay, to get this thing off, from what I can tell, we've got two bolts holding it on. We've got one right down there, you can see. If we come in on this side, right up under there, you've got one back there. Then we've also got to undo the throttle linkages that connect into here and go back that way. See, we got the two there. And we've got to undo the spring here that's up here that hooks onto the, let's see, there we go, onto the manifold right here. Get that undone, and that should then, oh yeah, and get this vacuum that goes to the PCV valve off. So then we've got the other vacuum right there that we can tap into. Okay, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But we're gonna go ahead and get this pulled off. I'm not gonna record taking this off because it's pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, and of course we got to undo the fuel line there at the fuel filter, which is this thing right there. That's the fuel filter, and then this is the fuel line that runs down to the fuel pump. So we're gonna get this thing pulled off here. This is not the original carburetor. This is a Holley, I think it's a Holley 1940 model, which is what I hope, because that's what I've got the rebuild kit for. So I looked at getting a new one, a new carburetor, and it's like $200 for a new carburetor. I spent maybe 40, no, I guess it was 60 bucks because I got the deluxe rebuild kit, which included new floats and some other pieces that the standard one doesn't. So I figured 60 bucks was a much better value than 200. So hopefully I can get this to work. I'm going to take a bunch of pictures too, so I know how all of this mounts back up. And that's, watching a lot of the rebuild videos, they strongly encourage that. So anyway, oh yeah, by the way, something else, if yours is hooked up, this is the choke tube. It's supposed to go down and connect into the manifold. Trying to see if I can get in, you can see where it's supposed to connect. I'm not really getting a good look down in there, but oh yeah, I think that, anyway, there's a hole on the manifold, the exhaust manifold, that's supposed to connect into. This one's not connected, so the choke's not really doing me any good at this point. I'll have to fix that some other time because I don't have that. But I'm planning to replace that exhaust manifold anyway. So with that, time to get started on taking this thing off. Okay, so we got the carburetor off, and I can't really see what you're seeing exactly, but here's the carb. A couple of things I should have mentioned as I was taking it off was, first, remember it's still got gas in it, so be careful when you're pulling it off. It can have a lot, spill gas everywhere. And you obviously want to be careful of that because that's a hazard. So anyway, came off pretty easily. The biggest problem I had was getting the vacuum advance that goes to the distributor off. The fitting is supposed to rotate. It didn't want to do that, so I actually had to disconnect the carb, then spin the carb and to get it going in the right direction. So anyway, we will see how this goes. I just realized this actually has a Motorcraft stamp on it, so I hope I have the right rebuild kit for this. But I saw the stamp of Holley on the other side, and so there was the Motorcraft 2100 single barrel that was used, Holley also produced a model of that, which may be what this is. I swear I thought I had replaced this carburetor back in the 80s. And the replacement carb was usually the Holley 1940. So I may have made a mistake on this one. We will see. We will see how far we get. I may have to buy some new parts. Well, letting my dad know that it is off. Anyway, so one of the things I recommend, I've got the assuming I have the right carb, I'm going to go looking at this thing now to see if this is the right one. But got the exploded view sheet and adjustment sheet that got from Mikes Carburetor. So the rebuild kit came from him. He has a good reputation in the industry, so I'll have to get the fuel filter off there. Start looking. It looks like it's the same thing, so maybe it is. Anyway, we'll find out. Why, don't live dangerously, right? So one of the things I'm going to do as I'm taking this thing apart is there's a lot of little bitty pieces in this thing. So I'm going to take a lot of pictures. I'm going to try to segregate things out accordingly, and I probably should be wearing gloves with this instead of getting grease and crap all over my hands. But just wanted to let you know that there's a lot of little screws and everything. You want to make sure you put things back where they go. So have some little baggies or little things to organize the screws and pieces that come out. If you have a big enough table, you can actually kind of put them as you take them out where they go, kind of thing. At least that's what I saw on the web. Like I said, this is the first carb I've ever rebuilt or attempted to rebuild, so take what I'm doing with a grain of salt. So first thing is to go ahead and take a bunch of pictures now that I've got it out of the car. And we're going to go do that. Well, I checked a text message from my dad. Since my dad's the original owner of the car, he's very interested in the outcome of all this. So again, just taking a bunch of good close-up pictures of everything just to get an idea. One thing I'm seeing as I'm going over this, I'm seeing a bunch of, turn this around, a bunch of, looks like grease or maybe even gasoline was coming out of this, which is definitely not good at all. So we want to get that. Obviously the seal gasket is not working out well there. So we're going to start taking this thing apart from the top. We'll be cleaning it as we go, as I figure out how best to do some of this. So let's see. First, let's get the fuel filter off. I'll move this over here. I found the bigger wrench. Didn't think that was going to be too hard to, it pulled out more than I expected at the time, but that's okay. That's something that has to be replaced as well. Let's see that. So what I'm going to do is break these loose. Size. There we go. I thought this would come looser, easier, because this is a new fuel filter. doesn't come apart. I think I had tweaked that tight. Apparently I did torque the shit out of that thing. That's not good. You should not have to torque it that much. Okay. The only reason I do that, I'm going to reuse that fuel filter because it's good. Otherwise, I'd replace it. So this is in your rebuild kit. The jet that goes in, not really a jet, I guess it's the valve that allows fuel to enter the carburetor. Your kit should come with a new one of those, so I'm not going to worry about that. What I am going to do is get some. Okay, I've decided to get some of those on. So, let's see, we got that disconnected. Let's see what seems to be the next is going to be. Let's see if I can get this thing disconnected. Which I'm not, it's a vacuum pump of some sort. So we'll need a Phillips head screwdriver. Get this part off. The reason I'm going with this one first is because it connects to this linkage over here that is connected to the top, and I don't see how I can easily get that off without disconnecting this first. So I'm taking that off first. Now, as I'm doing this, a couple other things I'm thinking about that I probably should tell you. One, remember you're working with something that had gas in it. There's going to be fumes, so make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area. That's why I'm out here in the garage sweating my keister off instead of working inside where it's nice and air-conditioned, because I'm here in Georgia, and in the south it is quite hot right now. Trying to get this to pop loose. Not sure. There we go. Okay, so this is where I'm going to take a picture showing that there was a spring in here. And that it goes with this piece right here. So picture time. And that part is, what part is that? Oh, it would be 24 is the diaphragm, 19 spring for the diaphragm, it's a vacuum something, I don't know. Said I'm not a mechanic, so take this off, and sit these over here together. So I know those go together. Put this over there. So that gets this linkage here where it's loose. And I can maybe pull that out. There we go. So that goes with that. Okay, so that takes care of one of those. Now I've got this other linkage here, which is held on by this clip. Comes off like so. Picture time again. So take this, this, and that comes. I guess I can't put that on there. Just pull out of which way is the easiest way. There we go. Do that. Okay, so now we only have one other connector, and that is this one here, which goes here. It's held on by a nut there. Now the question is, do I have the right size socket? Nope. I have a wrench that'll fit it. Yeah. So this is a 3/8 nut on here that's holding this bracket on here. Anyway, other things I was going to tell you. So some other things I got based on what I'd seen on other YouTube videos about rebuilding carburetors is obviously you're going to want to clean this sucker, clean all the metal parts out as you're doing it. Pardon me, I get sweat in my eye. It's a fun part of working outside, 90+ degree temperatures with a humidity of a lot. Okay, so that's. Oops. Let's see. How's that? Lock washer down there. So spring hooks there, hooks around there. What else holds that? Well, maybe that shouldn't come off. Well, it would, but maybe not. Okay. Now, what I've gotten is a bunch of carb and choke cleaner here for spraying and cleaning off parts, which is why I have this other little drum, or not drum, I guess container. It might fall off the ground so I don't get all the crap on it. Some people will put all of this in a bath. Piece. They did it. Yeah. So. I'm going to pull some of these nuts and stuff off. I'm just going to try to clean them with a little of the carb cleaner. Put them back together. You can tell they've been cleaned. So I got the carb cleaner. I also got some Scotch-Brite pads to help clean parts even more. So I'm going to get one of those right now. Okay, so apparently we had a camera malfunction and we didn't get the rest of the disassembly. So here are some shots of the carburetor as we take it apart in the various components and pieces and their condition. You can see the gaskets were pretty shot, whatnot. Then we let it all soak in some brake cleaner and then reassembled. So now we'll return to the assembly or the final product. Okay, so we got the carb finally rebuilt. Got her all put back together with our rebuild kit. Got her cleaned back up so she looks much better, not covered in grease and grime like she was before. So a couple of lessons learned on this. Make sure you take lots of pictures. I didn't take nearly enough pictures because trying to figure out where all these little connecting rods or linkages go was a pain, especially because this one and this one, let me see if you can get down here. This one right here are shaped very similar to one another. So I was initially trying to put the wrong one in the wrong spot. So you want to make sure you note where all of those things go. But I got it all in here and hopefully back together the right way. At least according to the pictures, it's the right way. So we'll double check everything there to make sure. But she's good. We're going to be putting her back on the car. I'm also going to be replacing the fuel pump, which, get the light source down here so you can see that. So right there is the fuel pump. So I'm going to try to get it out. I've got a new one of those. Although that one seems to be working, figure might as well replace it if I can because I see some buildup on that one. So we'll try to get it out. But the carburetor is going to go, whoops, that out of the way right there. See, I put a rag in there to keep stuff from getting in the engine while I was working on it. So get her back in and get her going. One last thing I did want to mention, if you ever do this yourself, on here you'll see this screw, let's see, right there. It's got the spring on it. That's the mixture screw. So when you put that in, after you're rebuilding it, what I've read everywhere and seen is you take it, screw it in as far as it'll go, not over torquing it or anything, just until it bottoms out, and then back it out 1.5 turns, and that will get you a good starting point for your fuel mixture. So that I'm going to go put this back on. Okay, so we got the car back in the car. It's back in. A couple things. Also replaced the PCV valve back there. Need to get a clamp. I'm missing one. Couldn't find it. I thought I had an extra. Also replaced the vacuum hose that goes to the PCV valve because the one that was in here was ancient. Something I'm going to have to get because it didn't, it broke and reinstall is the clutch, not clutch, oh crud, choke tube that goes from here down to the exhaust manifold that opens and closes the choke based on the temperature of the engine. So that broke. I didn't think about getting a new one when I got the carb rebuild kit. So I'll get one of those. Didn't matter because I didn't have the little, I don't know if you can see it down there. Let's see if I can get a, it's supposed to be a little nipple-like thing sitting in the exhaust manifold right there that choke tube feeds into that isn't there anyway. And I've got to replace the exhaust manifold because I've got crap like this where it's cracked, leaking really bad. And that's, I think, the original exhaust manifold from '67. So I've got to replace it as well. But none of that should stop from checking and making sure the carb works. It may not work perfectly because the fact the choke won't work, but everything else should be good to go, I hope. So anyway, we'll give it a shot here after I replace the fuel pump. So that's next on my agenda. Okay, so changing fuel pump, probably not going to happen because the hard line, which is right there, I cannot get that loose. I've sprayed it with PB Blaster and penetrating oil, so it's probably have to soak for a few days to get loose, so that's not happening. Can't use heat on that because, well, it's fuel, right? So don't do that. I did go up and change all the spark plugs, which thankfully on this engine is very easy. You can see them right there. One of the things I love about this inline six is it's all there. So change those out because I had the plugs that were 20 something years old that you can see laid out here, and they actually weren't, let me get that to focus a little bit. Anyway, they weren't that bad. See, a little rounded at the end, but overall pretty clean. You know, for plugs that have been there for 22 years. No signs of a lot of fouling. Don't appear to be running like they were running super rich or anything, so they probably could have stayed in there. But since I rebuilt the carb to get the most out of the carb rebuild, assuming it works, we're okay. So I'm not doing the fuel pump. I guess now is the faithful moment. Time to see if we can get her to start. So carburetor installed, car is running, had to chase down some leaks around the fuel filter, tighten that up. We got that squared away and she seems to be running pretty darn good. So I guess I can now claim I rebuilt my first carburetor successfully. Yay. Very excited. Okay. Now the plug's changed, still got to do the fuel pump at some point. I'd like to get a professional that knows how to set timing and all that to look at it. Get the choke thing fixed. I'll probably wait till I get the manifold replaced to do that. But I guess we'll go wash her now. Get her cleaned up. I've already started on the air cleaner, but we'll get that put back on. Back her out. Got to back the truck out first. And get her washed. Get all the grease from the last several weekends of work off of it. Okay, going for a test drive in the Mustang after carb rebuild. Trying to get her out of the garage here, which is always somewhat entertaining with non-power steering. Trying to get around my wife's Mustang. She's backing up pretty good. Go. I gotta figure out what happened to the radio. The radio quit working yesterday or Friday. And I'm sure you can get wind noise because I'm doing the old 255 air conditioning because, well, that's what it's got. We're gonna go see how she does. So far, so good. Nothing seems to be untotally wrong. Doing pretty darn good. Slow down coming up here because there's always people parked on the road, and with non-power drum brakes I don't stop nearly as fast as everybody else. Oh, this is gonna be a tight fit. but through pretty good. There we go. I'll go out and get her on the road where I can get her up to speed. See how she does. Steering is so much better since we did the rebuild on the front end. Definitely tell the difference. It's still got play in it. Still think the steering box probably needs to be either rebuilt or replaced. I'm toying with going with Borgeson Power Assist steering on that, but we'll see. We got other things we need to figure out first. Still have to figure out the transmission leak. Still got the floor pan that I've got the piece for, but I got to cut out the old one and get the new one welded in, and that's right now beyond my skill set, not to mention I don't have the tools for it. See, we're up to 50 miles an hour ish. Since it's a 45, I mean, I'm more than 45. 50, right? Yes. Accelerating fine, no hesitation so far. Temperature is good right now, but I still think the timing needs to be set as part of it. Still want to replace that radiator. Still amazed that even though the transmission leaks, she shifts fine. I just think I got some seals that need to be replaced in there. Still need to do the differential fluid. Haven't done that. Corner of the gas station has the non-ethanol fuel that I get for the car. Speed limits, no problems. She still seems to be driving good. There's a vet. The driver's side mirror is doing so much better. I can actually use it. Still got to fix the passenger side when it's not angled right. Needs some adjustment, but I'll deal with that later. Never had it before, so it's not that big deal. But there's no instructions. I got it from CJ Pony Parts, and they don't provide any instructions on how to target mirror, angle it, whatever you call it. Right now I look in it and all I see is trees, grass, curb, no nothing. It's kind of a big contrast day, nice summer day, probably lower 90s. Thinking back when I was in the Navy, had a weekend liberty. I was going to drive from Norfolk, Virginia, all the way down to Atlanta, Georgia to see my now wife. We just had a big snowfall, 12, 15 inches of snow, which I know up north that's nothing, but down south that's a lot. Went out to the parking lot where the car was. It was this car. Snow piled up around it. So got in, got the car cranked. Well, first I couldn't get in the driver's door. It was frozen shut. Got in the passenger door, crawled over, got the car cranked to get it heated up while I shoveled the snow out from around it. Couldn't even get the passenger door to stay shut. So I tied it off with jumper cables from the door handle to the shifter, keep the door shut, and started down the road. I think it was Highway 58, State Highway 58, if I remember correctly. Anyway, people were flying by me because I was going slow. Because I'm a Georgia boy, I don't drive in snow. So I was going, I don't know, 15, 20 miles an hour, nothing major. People were flying by me, and invariably I'd get a couple miles down the road and they'd be spun out in the median or in the ditch, and me just poking along, kept on going. I guess after about an hour or so of driving, not too far before I got to Highway 95 or Interstate 95, and the car, the passenger door thawed enough that it would actually close without being tied shut. But made it all the way home. Took about 16 hours to get from Norfolk to Atlanta. Normally an 8-hour drive, but I made it safely in this very car. So kind of, and also drove it back in a hurricane again from Atlanta up to Norfolk. Didn't know it was Hugo or it was one of the one that hits Charleston. I'm going up 95 and I'm just driving this torrential rain, literally get blown at one point all the way across the interstate into the median. That's the point I decided I probably need to pull over and wait for a bit. So I did. I got off the next exit, got up under an abandoned gas station overhead, parked there for an hour or two, let the rain subside a little bit, got back on the road. So, me and this car have been through a lot. Gets me where I'm going safely though. Can't ask a car to do more than that. Well, now we're here back at the house. Made a nice good test drive. Everything seems to be working like it should. Very happy. So now the good girl has earned herself a bath. So I'm gonna pull it up here and park her. And there we go. Test drive successful.